All righty. Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday school class for April 16th of 2023. There we are. We are in the age of the patriarchs, lifetime of Jacob and his sons. And Joseph is in Egypt, and we are during the years of plenty. So we left off last week in the year 1668 BC, when Levi, son of Jacob, had another son after Gershom, his son named Kohath. Kohath is the grandpa of Moses. Kohath is the uncle of Moses. Levi is grandpa to Moses through his mom Jochebed, who is Levi's daughter. Levi is also Moses' great-grandpa through his dad Amram. So if we're scratching our heads here, Levi, after his sons were born, towards the end of his life, he had a daughter named Jochebed. His daughter married her nephew, Amram. So Amram married his aunt, and Amram and Jochebed are Moses' parents. So Kohath is Moses' grandpa through Amram. Kohath is Moses' uncle through his mom, Jochebed. They're Kohath and Jochebed are brother and sister. So yes, Levi is both Moses' grandpa and his great-grandpa at the same time. Levi is about 37 years old when Kohath is born to him. So here in 1668 BC, Middle Bronze Age, 2A, powers that be and the rulers in place, we have, let's see here. Over in China, we are still at the tail end of the Xia dynasty with their last emperor, Emperor Xi. Not a great guy, pretty much brought about the end of the dynasty. And there's their capital, the modern city of Anyang. So let's see. So that's who's in power at this time. Over in Egypt, let's go here. We have two pharaohs, father and son. Father Senuseret III is the head guy, head pharaoh here. He's actually taken a little bit of a backseat as he's sharing the throne with his son. So there's Senuseret III, pharaoh during this time. That's the guy. And he has brought on his son to co-reign with him. His son is Amenemhat III. This guy right here. This is the pharaoh of Joseph in the Bible. This is the pharaoh that had the dreams. This is the pharaoh that promoted Joseph, Amenemhat III. Now, a couple questions were asked last week. Hey, Brother Joe. A couple questions were asked that I did not have answers to. So I did some research this past week. One of the questions from Brother Clay: how old was Amenemhat III when he ascended to the throne? After my research, here's my answer. I still don't know. And apparently no one else does either, so I don't feel so bad. I know. That's tough. But we do know he reigned as pharaoh for 44 years, starting with his dad, and then later co-reigning with his son that he brought on with him. So however old he was when he came to the throne, he lived long enough to be pharaoh for 44 years during that time. Another question, Sister Ashley had asked about the Nile River and got some confirmation. Not only is it fresh water, but it still has crocodiles to this day. And so I do have some fruits of my research and labors here. I have two educational videos for us. Oh, first is on Amenemhat III and specifically his tomb. Again, very, very educational documentary films here. This first one is, let's see. We'll go right about there. Now let's start at the beginning and then I'll skip over. This is a video game called Assassin's Creed Origins, which takes place in Egypt. So maybe not as documentary educational as you might think. But notice right here, the Fayum Oasis. Go away. So this is exactly what we're talking about. The tomb of Amenemhat III. The video game takes place right here with the Pharaoh of Joseph. Yeah. I don't know if they're recognizing him as the Pharaoh of Joseph at the time, but anyway. Yeah, so here we are. The pyramid, the tomb of Amenemhat III. Yeah, so go check that out. We're going to fast forward. Let's go right about. That's good. So there's our hero dealing with the crocodiles in the tomb of Pharaoh Amenemhat III in the video game Assassin's Creed Origins. Uh-oh, it's come out. Get him. He goes in. There's stuff under the water. Now, screen's a little dark. Yeah. Oh, and on these video games, they time that too. Oh, he's finding treasure and clues. Glub, 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 glub. Better hurry, better hurry. Hurry, hurry. Yay, whatever that was. Yes, he is on a mission here. Oh, what's that? Oh, look, it's Egyptian stuff.
In the Old Kingdom.
Amenemhat III is Middle Kingdom. I need to write to these people. Yes, steal loot from the tomb. Get that out of the way. Go, 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 go. Hooah. Hooray! We made it out of the tomb of Amenemhat III, the Pharaoh of Joseph in the Fayum Basin. Right where the waterway of Joseph is. So hooray. I know we're all happy now. The second question, actually, so that's dealing with Amenemhat III, but now let's talk about the Nile crocodile.
Nile crocodile versus saltwater crocodile. Who would win a fight between these two epic predators? Many of you have asked me to make this video, so thank you for that. And please press the subscribe button for more videos. Nile crocodile is one of the world's largest and most powerful crocodiles. Their strength is the epitome of power. In fact, Egyptians considered Nile crocodiles as the god of fertility, power, and protection. This giant, strong, magnificent creature intrigues interest of all. Saltwater crocodiles are the largest living reptiles on Earth. These massive creatures are known by a slew of names, including sea crocodile, Indo-Pacific crocodile, salty, marine crocodile, and estuarine crocodile. They also have an incredibly wide distribution, as they live in regions from India and Asia to Australia. Size and appearance.
So we're comparing the
Nile crocodiles are the second largest species of crocodile on Earth. They can grow up to 16.4 feet, 5 meters long, and weigh an average 900 pounds, 410 kilograms. Some exceptionally large crocodiles have been found that are up to 19.6 feet, 6 meters long, and weigh 2,000 pounds, 900 kilograms. The Nile crocodile is covered with hard, bony, plate-like scales, which are colored a dark or olive gray on the top, with bare bands which run across the back. On the underside, they are a cream or yellow color, with black patches. Their streamlined long body ends with a narrow jaw at one end, which has visible teeth sitting on the outside of the mouth at all times. On the head, the eyes, nostrils, and ears sit on top of the head. This allows these to sit out of the water so that they can see and breathe while the rest of their body is safely below the surface. Their tail is long and muscular. They also have webbed feet, which can be used to assist with swimming. Saltwater crocodiles are the largest living reptiles. Adult males can reach 19 to 23 feet, 6 to 7 meters, and weigh between 2,200 to 2,650 pounds, 1,000 to 1,200 kilograms. Females are much smaller and do not generally exceed 10 feet, 3 meters. The head is quite large and features a pair of ridges that run from the eyes along the center of the snout. The scales are oval, and the scutes, bony plates, are small compared to other species. Adults are darker with light tan to gray areas. The ventral surface is white or yellow in color, and stripes are present on the lower sides of the body, but do not extend to the belly. The tail is gray with dark bands. The saltwater crocodile has a heavy set jaw with between 64 to 68 teeth.
Okay, that's all I needed to hear. So wow. So a comparison of the Nile crocodile with the saltwater crocodiles, still no joke either way. So, where was it?
Tan to gray.
Let's see here. That's all I needed to see. Snack time. So, yes. So this is quite the real deal here. Now, again, that's the saltwater one, which is bigger than the Nile crocodile. So yes, in his estimation, in a battle between the two, the saltwater crocodile would defeat the Nile crocodile. I still don't care to meet either one of them myself personally. So there is that. So while we've got these guys in Egypt, we have over in the young nation of Assyria, we have, let's see, right over here, 46. In their early capital of Ashur, which is another form of Osiris, which is a variation on Nimrod, who was worshipped in all these different manifestations. So there's the early capital where they are being ruled by Sargon I. That's the young kingdom of Assyria. That will play a big part in the Bible as we go along. On a smaller scale, we have a little further south, 2 city-states that are about to be joined by a third. We have in Isen, the city-state being ruled by King Bursin. And this glyptic art is a cylinder seal that was rolled out off the cylinder. That's the impression that shows. That is from the time of Joseph in Egypt. That was going on in Mesopotamia. And just a bit south, we have the other city-state, the kingdom of Larsa. Larsa being ruled at the moment by Abisari. So we go further south. And from Assyria, down here in the south, we've got both Isen and Larsa. Larsa is a little further south of Isen. So there we have it. Well, our folks from the Bible, Esau is over in Mount Seir, the land of Edom, and that mountain range. Esau and his twin brother Jacob are now 123 years old. They live longer than Moses did. Will live later on. So that's the mountain range Esau is taking up residence in here. And Jacob, while Joseph is in Egypt, Jacob is up in Hebron, which is right over here. Hebron is where Abraham and Sarah are buried, and now Isaac has been recently buried there too in their family cave. Jacob is up here again, 123 years also. Off to the side here, his son Judah is living in this area from Adullam, now over here, Chezib. And Judah is now 36 years old. He's got 3 kids, Onan, and Shelah. And our hero Joseph is away from the family, presumed dead as far as the father knows, and is in the Egyptian capital of Ichitawi, dealing with the Pharaoh and ruling as his number 2 now. Given the Egyptian name Zatanaph Apaneah, which means Joseph, he who is called the one who lives. And we saw last week that we have secular Egyptian records of the very guy, the vizier, the number 2, who was given that same name, the one who lives. Same guy who built the grain silos and everything else. All the records are there. So that is Joseph. So now, moving on in our story and timeline here, Larsa gets themselves a new king in 1667. His name is Samuel or Samuel. Let's see, 13. So we got something from his time as king. Again, while Joseph is in Egypt during the years of plenty. This is a votive statuette, votive for offerings. They would light candles and have different things, offerings to their gods. And this is over in the Louvre Museum in Paris now. This is from the time of Joseph, from the land of Larsa during the kingship of Samuel or Sumuel. And he was an Amorite, which is one of those Westerners who came in and kind of dominated. And that same year, 1667, brings us to a new dynasty of a land you may have heard of, land called Babylon. This is the birth, the beginning of the Babylonian Empire in their early days, while Joseph is in Egypt. So Babylon is a little further north up here in this area here. So while Joseph's over there, the promised land is here. Joseph's family's up here. This is where a lot of folks had come after the flood. So let's take a look. Now, a lot of this has been built up over time, but here is Babylon. The gate of Ishtar. We've been talking about Ishtar and Anna in Wednesday night classes. So the dynasties of Ison and Larsa are now joined by a third dynasty line based here at Babylon. The Babylon First Dynasty is founded by King Samuabum. This is the launching, the inaugurating of another great, powerful time frame in their history. This becomes known as the Hammurabi or Hammurabi, however you want to pronounce his name, dynasty. He's the famous guy. Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the world later on, Nebuchadnezzar. Again, the gate of Ishtar there. And the lions and all that stuff. Amphitheater. And all that. So there is the beginnings of Babylon. So what do we know about this guy? Samuabum. He also was an Amorite, one of the guys who came over from the west. What happened was he was in this little area that was ruled by another Amorite city, Kazulu, that included Babylon. It was just a minor admin center. Well, he broke it out, made it independent. He and the 3 kings that came after him, they're all these Westerner Amorites. They didn't call themselves kings of Babylon because Babylon wasn't much yet. But this little place would later become the famous Babylon, but this is the start of it. This is how it all broke out and would build from there. He actually called himself the king of Kasura, one of those areas there. Now, here's a thought or question. Babylon and the Tower of Babel. What do they have to do with each other? In one sense, nothing. It's often mistakenly thought that the Tower of Babel was at Babylon, that Babylon was a development from Babel. Not the case. The Tower of Babel was actually in the city of Eridu, which Enoch had named for his son Irad, and it was rebuilt after the flood. So how did this get confused? Well, in Sumerian, the name for Eridu was Nun-Ki, mighty place. Babylon's name was also Nun-Ki, the mighty place. It took on the name. It tried to mimic the greatness of Babel. So it took on the same Sumerian name. When the Jews were captured by Babylon, about 1,000 years from when we're talking right now, when they're captured in Babylon and they're staring at the ziggurat, the tower that's there in Babylon, they may have been thinking, well, this is the reason. This is why we're here. So they may have associated it with it and lost sight of the fact that, no, it was actually over in Eridu. Another reason the tower ziggurat in Babylon can't be the Tower of Babel, because Babylon is just coming into existence now, 1600s BC. The Tower of Babel is 885 years before Babylon. So little tidbits there. So Levi, after the birth of Gershom and Kohath, he has his last son born, Merari, in 1666. He's 39 years old. Now let's crack open our Bibles and go to Genesis 38. Genesis 38. So let's go. We're going to go while Joseph's in Egypt during the years of plenty. We are going to hang out with his brother Judah and see what happens here. So Genesis 38. Remember, Judah is the fourth born of Jacob. Judah has 3 sons so far. Judah is in the line of Christ. His first 3 sons will not be. So something is going to happen here. Genesis 38. Let's pick it up in verses 6 to 7. Genesis 38, verse 6. Now Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord took his life. Ouch. This is, I'll hold your place. You can stay there. This is actually mentioned also in First Chronicles, which keeps a running track of these things as well. First Chronicles chapter 2, verse 3 tells us, the sons of Judah were Onan, and Shelah. These 3 were born to him by Bathshua, the Canaanitess. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the sight of the Lord, so he put him to death. So he's lost his son, his firstborn, and now Tamar is a widow. Continuing on in verse 8. So what happens? Genesis 38, verse 8. Then Judah said to Onan, have relations with your brother's wife, and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her, and raise up a child for your brother. Now Onan knew that the child would not be his. So when he had relations with his brother's wife, he wasted his seed on the ground, so he would not give a child to his brother. But what he did was displeasing to the sight of the Lord, so he took his life also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he thought, I'm afraid that he too may die like his brothers. So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. Well, this is interesting. So Judah's 3 sons. First one gets married and he's evil. God kills him. So Judah tells the next born, hey, do the right thing, marry your brother's widow, raise up family, undo your brother. Well, the second born, Onan, says, well, this kid's, if I have a kid with her, he's going to be recognized as my brother's and not mine. I'm not doing that. So he refuses to conceive with her. And God looks at him doing that and where his heart is and says, that ain't right. God kills him. So now imagine you're Judah. Okay, I've given my first 2 sons to this woman and they're both dead. I got one left. Yeah, I'm not so quick to hand him over. So he tells her, hang tight, chill out at your dad's for a while. Let my baby one grow up a little bit and then we'll go from there. And so we'll see how all that plays out. So now Jacob is 127. Judah is 40 when this happens. Joseph's now 37. So any reactions to that story or that passage of scripture, by the way? Yeah. What's that?
I would have hung on to my baby.
You would have hung on to your baby too. So as a parent, we can understand that. Yeah. Okay. There's something happening here, something going on. Well, if Joseph is 37 now and he came to power at age 30, this means the 7 years of plenty have now come to an end. Yeah.
Just the explain that a little bit.
Sure.
Only knew that the offspring would not be here. So if he conceives with her, they can see.
Biologically, yes. Culturally, no.
So, okay.
Basically, this would later be codified, made into law in the law of Moses from God, called the Levirate vow. Levirate referring to brother. And this is where if your brother dies, then you would marry his widow and raise sons in honor of your brother that died. And the sons would culturally belong to your brother, not to you.
So you're dead.
Yeah, but this is culturally,
Yeah.
how they would honor the one who was not able to live long enough to.
That's who that is.
If the brother-in-law goes into his sister-in-law and sees and raises up a maiden offspring for his brother, that is the substitute heir.
Yeah,
So that property is heir.
Yeah, but that's my confusion. Heir to what? His father is dead. So his father, his real,
Mhm.
what would have been real dad, he's not there to lead.
So what was his now gets passed down to the son that's not his, but the son that's given to him. Basically, it's a posthumous adoption. Basically, after you die, the son through your former wife and your brother is now basically adopted into being yours after you're already dead. And so he's the one who carries on your legacy and your heritage from there. And that was how the culture worked. Yeah.
Is it only the firstborn son? All the children of the second?
This question is raised in the New Testament. When the Sadducees, who don't believe in a resurrection, challenge Jesus during the Passion Week between Palm Sunday and Easter. They say, hey, Jesus, teacher, rabbi. So, guy had a wife. Okay, and the guy had 7 brothers. Well, he died and had no kids with her. So the next brother marries the wife. He dies, no kids. All 7 marry this wife, no kids. Because basically, to this point, it would be all the brothers until there's a kid who would have this obligation to do that. And so they asked Jesus the question, in the resurrection, which they don't even believe in, whose wife will she be? She was married to all 7 of them. And Jesus basically says, you idiots, you don't even get what you're talking about here, and explains to them that in the resurrection, they're not given in marriage like that. But the fact that the resurrection happens, remember, God told Moses, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who are already dead, but in heaven. He is still in the present God. He didn't say I was, I am. So the resurrection is real. But the point is that practice was even that we're seeing here in Genesis was even in practice in the New Testament age. So this was a serious cultural deal for us. Strange to us, 21st century Westerners, but very, very powerful and real to these folks.
But my question is, all the children of Onan be his brothers, or would it be only the first?
Okay, I misunderstood. Was this only done for the firstborn brother, with the children? That I'm not sure of. I believe so, because it'd still be that wife. It'd be the brother's wife. So do you just give him the one and done? Or is it because that's the brother's wife? These are all his. So good question. And so I haven't come across any examples in scripture, but maybe there are cultural ones and historical ones that carry that out. But that's a good question.
Property for his own children to inherit.
Yeah.
So maybe the firstborn inherits all his brothers.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And his own children, second one down.
Yeah.
Would inherit his own.
Yeah. That would make sense in my modern Western mind, but their culture is different, is and was different. So that might not be their line of thinking. So I can't say one way or the other, but it's an interesting thought, interesting question. So see how that all would play out. So the 7 years of famine now begin in 1663 BC. Esau and Jacob, the twins, are now 128 years old. Judah, now 41. Joseph's now 38. Now this brings us back to Genesis 41. We were already in Genesis 41 earlier. Why did we go backwards to Genesis 38? Because the Bible's not written in order. Excuse me. Not only are the books not in the Bible put in the order that they chronologically take place, but even within a single book, the books aren't always written in, or that wasn't as much of a focus for them as it is for our Western brains and certainly mine. It was more for culturally for the themes, the material, and whatnot. That was a higher priority. And of course, remember, spirit inspired also as these are recorded. So we're back in Genesis 41 now. let's go to verse 53. Genesis 41:53. When the 7 years of plenty, which had taken place in the land of Egypt, came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come, just as Joseph had said, then there was famine in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. So when all the land of Egypt suffered famine, the people cried out to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, go to Joseph. Whatever he says to you, you shall do. When the famine was spread over the entire face of the earth, then Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians. And the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Then the people of all the earth came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe in all the earth. So here's Pharaoh, Amenemhat III, whose tomb we just did a playthrough of with the crocodiles. Here's him saying, as the people are coming to him, don't come to me, come to Joseph. Joseph's the man. He's the man with the plan. He put this all in place. Joseph is the one we see earlier in Genesis 41, who had the storehouses built locally, not all at the central capital of Wichitawi, all in the local areas. So the people are buying the grain that they had paid taxes to, so they're getting the benefit of the taxes. They're still paying for it, but they're receiving what they had put in. And so Joseph takes care of them. And not only that, now outside foreigners are starting to come in because this famine is spreading. And there could be different causes for the famine in different areas. While we know the famine in Egypt was because the Nile was overflowing its banks, and we have the records of the Nile levels during the Amenemhat's reign, they specifically, more than any other time, took accurate markings, and lots of them, of how high the Nile was. The 7 years of plenty, it was great. A little more was great because the overflooding of the Nile brought more minerals to the areas where they would plant. So they were able to have more of a harvest, and that's what happened. But then you get too much, and what happens is the water doesn't go away. You're not able to plant, no planting, no harvest, you're going without. And so that's why Joseph had him take 20%, 1/5, and store it up during the years of plenty, so it'd be available for the 7 years of famine and last through that. So of course, God inspired and led also. But also God is raising up things under Pharaoh, because this lowered the local power of the nomarchs, those who were over the different regions, and they decreased in power while Pharaoh increased in power. The Egyptian records don't explain why, but the Bible does. That's exactly what happened. So we put these things together, it all fits. Don't have to turn there, but Acts chapter 7, verse 11, Stephen, in his powerful message, reminding the folks of their spiritual legacy, he talks about this. In Acts 7, verse 11, now famine came over all Egypt and Canaan, and great affliction with it, and our fathers could find no food. So exactly the situation we see playing out here. So that same year, so any questions on the transition from years of plenty to years of famine? Yes, Sister Carolyn.
It says in all the land, or over all the faces of the earth, what was all the things that you were at?
The known time, they knew about the continent of Africa. They knew about the continent of Asia, which included Israel. We forget Israel's on the continent of Asia. But yeah, so the Middle East and that area, that was known. We know the people from the Tower of Babel went as far as China and over eventually to the Americas. So we know that people exist, at least in China right now, but they're disconnected from what's happening here. So it's basically the known earth, and up into Europe, the Indo-Europeans, those from the Greek and Turkey islands, Cyprus and Crete and that area, they're coming over into this area and kind of dominating. And so we got people from Europe, Asia, and Africa. That main area is what we're talking about. That are.
Would they have grain stored in their areas?
No, they had no idea this was coming. So that was just an Egypt thing. They had no plan of preparation. And different areas, yeah, and you can look this up about different countries. Here's what this nation exports. Here's what that nation exports. And so we're benefited when nations are interacting with each other and trading with each other. And so some place might have grain, Other places might have minerals and raw materials, and so there'd be trading of these things. This is why President Reagan was wondering, well, if we know the evil empire of Russia is depending on us for grain, why are we giving it to them? Let's let them see that their way of doing things isn't working on it, is not self-sustaining, because they were dependent on us for grain. And while we were in a Cold War with them, we're giving them wheat. Yeah. And so, yeah, let's think about these things. Okay, NATO, okay, you're worried about Russia expansion. Why are you buying oil and gas from Russia? And giving them, and basically giving them money to fuel the things, to sponsor the things they're doing. So yeah, international interaction is very important. So what was the cause of famine in the Promised Land that caused Jacob and his family to look to Egypt? That seems to be more of a drought, a sun scorching period where the crops were burned. And as we look back and kind of see how the historical records playing out. And again, they didn't have the grain silos in the buildup because they did not know this was coming. So they're left, empty-handed. So they go where the bread is, they go where the wheat is, they go where the grain is. So they're going to be looking to Egypt. So yeah, great question. Does that clarify that? Okay. So this brings us back to Genesis 38. So what happens now? Genesis 38. We pick up in verse 12. Now, if you thought it was interesting before, get this. Now, after a considerable time, Shua's daughter, Bathshua, the wife of Judah, died. When the time of mourning was ended, Judah went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adulamite. Tamar was told, behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she removed her widow's garments, covered herself with a veil, wrapped herself, sat in the gateway of Enam, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up, and she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he assumed she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. So he turned aside to her by the road and said, here now, let me have relations with you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me that you may have relations with me? He said, therefore, I'll send you a young goat from the flock. She then said, will you give a pledge until you send it? Basically collateral. He said, what pledge shall I give you? She said, your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her, had relations with her. She conceived by him. Then she got up and departed and removed her veil, put on her widow's garments. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. He asked the people of the place, saying, where is the temple prostitute who is by the road at Enam? They said, there has been no temple prostitute here. So he returned to Judah and said, I did not find her. And furthermore, the people of the place said, there has been no temple prostitute here. Then Judah said, let her keep them. Otherwise, we will become a laughingstock. After all, I sent this young goat, but you did not find her. Here is, well, let's cut our losses, save our embarrassment. Besides, I did my part. I sent the goat. I did the honorable thing here. Yeah. Now it's about 3 months later that Judah was informed, your daughter-in-law Tamar has prostituted herself, and behold, she is also pregnant by prostitution. Then Judah said, bring her out and have her burned. Now, why was it not okay for her, but it was okay for him? Called a double standard. Not cool, not how God works. But anyway, it was while she was being brought out that she sent word to her father-in-law saying, I am pregnant by the man to whom these things belong. She also said, please examine and see whose signet ring and cords and staff are these. And Judah recognized them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah. And he did not have relations with her again. Well, that's a good thing. So we'll pick up with that story next week in that passage. But through that craziness, we have the line of Christ continuing. Yeah. So was God in favor of what happened? No. But can God take anything that's not so great and bring about something good from it? Absolutely. And so we'll see that carried out as we go. Any initial reactions to that passage? Yeah, kind of is what it is there. Yeah. So we will pick up with that craziness next week and continue on into the years of famine and Joseph's family coming on to join him in Egypt. So with that, we'll go ahead and stop our share for this morning. And stop our recording and get ready to go to the Lord in our song service.